One of my favorite decorations in real life for this season is a cornucopia made from bread. Since I've never gotten around to making a real one, I decided to make one for the dollhouse this year instead. So join me and see how fun and easy this is to do. All right, the only clay we're going to use today for this project is any white clay. You could use Primo, you could use Fimo, you could use Sculpey. I'm using Sculpey 3 because that's what I had. We're going to start out, our first piece is going to be a 1/2-inch ball. Then we're going to take our finger and we're going to make that ball have a really good point on it. This is going to be what we're forming the tail of our cornucopia on. And we're going to make a nice curl. However much curl you put here eventually will tie into how your cornucopia curves when it's finished. And this is the time you need to decide, do you want to have yours sitting with the point up or the point down? Whichever way you want to have it sitting, push it down so that it sits flat on your tray. Kind of make this end really flat. Because now we're going to take just a small piece. And what we're doing is we're building the base that we're going to build our cornucopia onto. Cornucopia, especially a bread one, is something I've always wanted to do. I used to host family Thanksgiving and I would never think to make one until too late to do it. So I was thinking about things to do for the dolls for the fall season, and I thought I've got to do a bread cornucopia because it will be perfect. Now I just rolled out a very thin piece, and it only needs to be, I would bet that's probably a little, in fact I'm going to trim it down just a little more, probably wanted about a 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to start at the bottom, and we want this to stick out past our end of our cornucopia, past this little horn piece we've made. And we're going to go around. We're going to try and keep this as round as we can. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's really, we're not going to see much of this. What we're doing here is our foundation we're going to build on. It's going to be kind of our framework, and I've got it on crooked, so let's move it forward. And this is what we want to have. So now I'm going to take this to the oven, and I'm going to bake this for probably, I'm only going to give it about 10 minutes right now. I just need to set it up enough that it's not soft. But the thing I do need to make sure of is that it is shaped exactly the way I want it. So I'll take some pictures and then I'll bake this off, and when it's baked and cooled, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. All right, now this is baked off and it's cooled off enough I can work with it. So now we're going to take more white clay. And we're going to work in small pieces. And what we're going to do is we're going to make snakes. And we're going to try and keep these pretty small. I'm talking like 1/8 inch at the most, because you don't want this to be very big. And they don't have to be perfectly even either. And I'm going to cut a fairly short piece. Normally I would say use some TLS liquid, transparent liquid Sculpey, but in the one that I made as a prototype I found I didn't need it, and it really made it messy to try and work with. So I didn't use it on that one. I'm not going to use it now either. So start with your snake kind of covering the end of that point. And I'll have a picture, I'll have a close-up of what this looks like on the blog post. And we're going to kind of close that up. What we want it to look like is we want it to look like this clay is going to represent the bread that's going to be on the outside. Now this, excuse me, this first snake is going to end in an inconvenient place. No matter where it ends, it's going to not be the best. After this first piece, because I find going any longer piece than that, it's really hard to get it to not get tangled. And then we're going to kind of go like this. I'm just wrapping the snake around, and now I'm going to end this one on the bottom. And from now on, when we have a snake ending, we want it to end on this flat surface. We don't want it to end where it's going to show. Half that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to keep doing this. I'll film a few of these and then I'll turn the camera off and get it worked up to the top. But I want to keep the camera going for a while so you get an idea of what I'm doing in case you've missed it. So we're going to wrap. And then too, if I run into any problems, and it's okay if your base shows through on the bottom side, but try to put the pieces on the top where it's going to show so that there's no, so this cone we made earlier doesn't show. Okay, that one I want to stop here. Since that one's ending there, I'm going to cut it there. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 more pieces on. When I get it up to the point where we're going to do the next step, I'll come back and I'll show you how to do that. All right, here's what this looks like now. I've got my snakes all on. Think of those as like breadstick type pieces. Now I've rolled out 3 more snakes and they're nice and long. We're not going to use all of this, but I want to have these long enough that I don't run short. And also that way I don't have to use the very ends. So we're going to make a braid. Now you could just take 2 pieces and wrap them if you're more comfortable with that. But I'm going to make a braid, and try and make it fairly tight. So you don't see a lot of space between the pieces. So I'm going to turn the camera off and continue braiding this down to the end. When I get this whole piece braided, I'll come back and I'll show you how we put it on. All right, so I've got that braided. I've got it kind of pushed down together. Now, there's a couple of ways you could have done this. If you find the clay sticking to your fingers too much, you could coat your fingers in cornstarch. The downside to that is then you will need to use TLS to get it to stick to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick this up. We're going to put it on here so that it's kind of sticking past that edge that we put on. Remember that piece we put on in the first step? We kind of want to disguise that. I want this to kind of come past it a little bit. And mine I actually broke my little piece. Oh, my knife is right in front of me. That's why I can't find it. But that's okay because this will cover it and we won't even notice it. And then we're going to cut here so it doesn't wrap around over itself. And again, we want that joint to be at the bottom. Kind of pull it around so it covers up any edges. I'm going to really quickly get a picture of this to put on the blog post and possibly to stick onto the video. There. Now, the fun part. We are going to use some chalk to color it and make it look all golden brown and delicious. If you've followed my videos for very long and watched me do breads before, you know what's coming. So take your clay that's left over, get it well away from your chalk. You don't want to contaminate that package of white clay. Oops, I've got another piece there. Okay, those are on the other side of the table now. So what I've got here, I've got some yellow ochre, a little bit more of each color in. I've got, I believe that is this one. Kind of a reddish brown. It makes a really, it's a little different color, but it's fine. I've got some dark brown, and then I've got some dark brown that's almost black. You don't want much of that. You just want just the tiniest bit. Now, you want to have either a towel, a paper towel, a fabric towel, a wet wipe, something. You want to wipe your fingers because you don't want to get that chalk where you don't want it. So we're going to start with, and this is just a makeup brush. It's an eyeshadow brush. It's made for powder eyeshadow. It works really well for working with clay. We're going to brush. And the yellow, this yellow ochre color, we are going to be pretty generous with. It doesn't have to go inside. We can have a little bit of white showing in the background between these because when bread bakes, the parts that are not out, that are, you know, down deeper in, they won't get as brown. Yeah. And this chalk is just, it's artist chalk like people used to do artwork with. I think every craft store has some. Just don't get oil pastels. These are actually chalks. Now we're going to move one color darker to this kind of reddish brown. And over the years I have learned I like this reddish brown the best for this step. You still want to be able to see some white and some yellow ochre. But channel your favorite HG or Food Network star and make sure this bread looks nicely baked. And we're going to take that very dark, the first of the dark browns, and we're just going to barely put a little of that. We don't want much of that. Very much of that, and it looks like Mrs. Doll left it in the oven way too long. And then that very, very darkest one, just a couple of spots. Oops. A clean brush and kind of buff that a little bit because I accidentally caught my nail on it and got down to white clay. There we go. Okay, looks like that end got a little overbaked. That's fine. It happens. All right, now, since we only baked this partially earlier, let me first see if I can get you guys down a little bit closer. Let me get the ugly chalk out of the way. Get you down. So that's what it looks like now. I'm going to put this in the oven. I'm actually going to bake this at 250 for probably about 20 minutes. I want to make sure that that big lump of clay is cooked all the way through, and we didn't bake it. We didn't cure the whole piece thoroughly when we did the first bake. That was just a par bake, so it would be stiff. So it would be hard enough we could work with it. So I'm going to go bake this. When it's baked and cooled off, I'll bring it back and we'll take a look at it. All right, here's our little cornucopia out of the oven. It looks like the doll family is ready to decorate for Thanksgiving. I cut a little piece of wood. This is just a 2-inch chunk from one of these ginormous craft sticks that you can get at Walmart. I think that's going to make a nice cutting board. I haven't decided what I'm going to use in my display on my dollhouse table, but I'm going to go look online and see what I see. And I suggest you do the same. You could put fruit in it, you could put flowers, you could put leaves. There's an endless number of photos online on how to display these, how people do them in their real homes. And you can take inspiration from those. If you want to make some fruits, I have lots of fruit making videos on my channel. I will try to remember to link some of them in the blog post. If you did like the video today, I hope that you'll push the like button and leave me a comment. If you haven't subscribed and you enjoy my content, I'd love to have you join us by subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.